All right, everybody, this is Macky. We're back with another episode here, and I'm still got Josh Holcomb, Esquire, with me.
That's me.
All right. We're going to start out. I was going to ask you, what was your first job out of law school?
So when I was in law school, so I'm a first generation lawyer, so I don't have any other lawyers in my family that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly not in my immediate family. So I got linked up with a law firm in Ozark, Alabama. So it's just north of Dothan.
Nice.
And so I was attending law school in Montgomery during that time at Jones School of Law that's located on Faulkner's campus.
Mm-hmm.
So I was clerking there, try to get a little bit of legal experience and stuff like that. And then as I was preparing to take the bar, took the bar, and then my first job as a lawyer was at that law firm. So it was Brogdon Law Firm was where I was at there. And so they were a general practice law firm. So did a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay. They worked you to death, right?
That's it.
That's nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When I passed the bar, my boss knew before I did. So because I was already very, very busy.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I found out I passed the bar is my boss, who was the managing partner of that law firm, Bob walks into my office with a stack of files,
mm-hmm.
and he sets them on my desk, and he says, "Congratulations, you're a lawyer,
Mr. Lawyer.
These are yours now. These are yours now.
Congratulations, Mr. Lawyer. Get the lawyering, right?"
So, yeah, that's it. So he did let me take the rest of the day.
Nice.
And so I got to pick up all those files
the next day, like 6 a.m.
That's it.
Now, when you're a clerk in there, were you like a paralegal for them?
So it's kind of like paralegal work, but the only difference is your third year of law school, you can apply through the state bar to get what's called a 3L practice card. So 3L just designates you're a third year law student.
Mm-hmm.
And with that 3L practice card, with supervision from a licensed practicing attorney in Alabama, you can go ahead and start practicing law.
You can go to the front of the judge and everything?
That's it. Yeah. As long as you are in the supervision of essentially a mentor figure to you who's in the courtroom. That
they have to be there with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they got to be there.
Okay.
They're supposed to be there with you. I think that's the state bar's understanding of it. There's been a couple occasions, I'm not going to tattle or get anybody in trouble, but I've certainly seen 3L attorneys at a courtroom without an attorney present. I never did that, though.
Right.
And I don't know if that speaks to my boss following the rules or my boss not trusting me.
Mm-hmm,
but.
Right. And then you got your partner, Jasmine. Where did she?
Right.
She graduated from Alabama Law, right?
Right.
So
Jasmine and I met each other at Jones.
Mm-hmm.
So we were actually both 1Ls, so first year law students together.
Mm-hmm. And
then she transferred after her first year, to the University of Alabama.
Okay.
So
all right. Did she work while she was going to law school too? Or?
I think she was doing some kind of clerking positions also during that time. And then out of law school, she was working for a personal injury law firm.
Sure.
And that's, ultimately led her over to M&H Legal when she and I kind of got back up together and then talked about kind of starting our own law firm, kind of blending our practice areas together.
Nice. So since y'all have partnered up and have your own business, has she won a $10 million payout yet?
Yeah, no, I don't. If we have, I haven't seen it. Well, I didn't know.
She kept it a secret, right?
Yeah, sure. She's done a really good job of it.
I just see the commercials and the billboards. Yep. $20 million for my client.
Sure,
blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
So.
Oftentimes, in a lot of those cases, those settlements, if you read the fine print on a lot of those, it'll say a total amount of settlements, and that may be a bunch of little settlements that have amounted to what that is, and then some of them actually are $10 million verdicts. I mean,
especially if you get in a death case. And
sure,
that kind of
they
stuff,
happen every day. So yeah,
or life, limb, and eyesight. We call it right.
Sure.
Right. Sure. So the main topic today is, I get asked this a lot, and I know you do too. What does evidence matter in a divorce case where adultery is going on?
Sure.
Well, how does evidence matter? What's your take on that?
So with evidence, it's certainly relevant. Again, you've got to bear in mind that most of these judges on a regular day-to-day basis, all they hear is he said, she said. And, hearsay in court of law, everybody knows that hearsay exists. A lot of people don't know how it applies in cases. And there are specific exceptions or statements that just aren't considered hearsay, even though somebody else said them. And that gets into the weeds of the Alabama rules of evidence that I'm not going to lose your listeners to. So that's the reason why evidence is important. Is instead of a judge relying on he said, she said, and then having to gauge the credibility of the people that's in front of the judge, instead the judge can actually look at objective information right in front of the court and say, yeah, that supports whatever contention that you say it is. In your example, adultery. So, so it's super important. It's very relevant. So.
We've seen it too, where we proved that somebody was having adultery, right? To come out of the hotel room, smooching on the park bench, whatever, all the things that happen. We get to see all the spicy stuff out on the street, right?
Sure, right.
And then they go into depositions where it's like it's like you do everything under oath so that you don't take the judge's time, right? So pretty much.
Sure.
And they lie on depositions. You're under oath on depositions.
Yeah, it's
right?
perjury.
Right.
Yeah, that's perjury. It's a big deal.
Now when that happens, so if you're deposing me right now, and I lie, you ever go, hey, time out, bro, you just lied? Do you ever do that?
No. Actually, I don't. And the reason why I don't is because the time to confront you with the lie isn't in the deposition where you're sitting beside your lawyer and the only other person that's relevant to the deposition is a court reporter who's taking everything down. That is not the time to confront you with that information. The time to confront you with that information will be in front of the person who will ultimately decide your case, whether that be, the judge, or if you're in some kind of other legal proceeding, that would be a jury. In which case, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier about credibility and establishing that credibility, and you'll lose all of it.
Right.
For the purposes of establishing just a, point blank lie.
Right. So we had you like hearing these cases we got?
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure.
We had one where this guy was a doctor, well-off guy, and he was working a lot, and his wife, he suspected, was having an affair. So we got her at a bar with a guy drinking, and they were dancing, kissing, hugging up, and then we were following her home, and she got into a car wreck and got a DUI. Okay. And she tried to say that she was not at the bar. She was not drunk, with video evidence. Okay. Is that what we call a narcissist? I don't know. I'm not a psychologist.
Yeah, sure. I'm not a psychologist either. It certainly is. It certainly is someone who isn't living in reality.
They're delusional.
Yeah, sure. And if there were any children involved in that case, all that's going to become relevant for the purposes of analyzing that. But at the end of the day, oftentimes in a divorce case, what are you trying to get? Obviously, maybe your division of what equity is, whether that be, out of the house or out of your personal property. But ultimately, the cause of action is to get you a divorce.
So the doc, he didn't care about the material stuff. He wanted them kids away from her because she was dangerous and lying. We even got her coming out of AA. I went into the AA meeting with her. I'm an AA veteran, by the way, which is good. AA is good. Yeah, she had the car after that wreck. They put the thing on her car. You help me with the name of it. Where you have to blow in the tube before to start. It had the regulation on it, right?
Gotcha.
But she would get one of her AA people to blow in it for her so she could start the car. So we got that on video. Not good.
That's two bad candidates for AA, right?
Right. She was this is the same lady. She was a mess, but the doc, he just wanted the kids not to be around her until she got her life in order.
Sure.
Right.
I think it's reasonable.
Yeah. And he wanted a divorce too, because obviously she was out seeing other dudes and everything, right. But he was kind of past that. Sure. I see that with men a lot. They're like, okay, how am I going to save these kids and save money kind of thing, right?
Sure.
You ever see that?
Yeah. Try to wrap that up in a combo deal. Yeah.
Where women are like, they want retribution. They cry a lot, which is fine. So
I'll say for the purposes of my caseload, it's certainly not gender specific. I mean, it's really not. I mean, it's sometimes, I represent both sides of a case, whether it's, mom or dad. Some cases, mom and mom. So,
right. We have those.
Dad and dad. So,
we get those. Pretty common. I wouldn't say common, but it happens these days.
It certainly happens.
Yeah.
And I would say it's not gender specific. It's personality specific. I mean, it just depends on who's in the courtroom. So
right.
It really does.
I labeled that men and women, what I mean? Sure, but now that you mentioned it, it's probably personality driven.
Yeah.
But
and I mean, it really is. So.
I'd say it this way. The alpha typically is like, let's get this over with. How am I going to save me some money, lawyer?
Yeah, that's a really good.
And the beta is kind of like, I want to revenge, you know what I mean? All this stuff. So if that makes sense. Because there's men that are more passive too.
Sure. Right.
And women kind of run the show.
Yeah.
Now, when you're preparing a case and you see, and the person comes to you and says, hey, my PI got him they're obviously in a relationship.
Sure.
How do you write that into your filing? How do you do that?
So for the purposes of adultery, a lot of people don't know this, but in Alabama, adultery is actually a crime. It's a misdemeanor.
Mm-hmm.
It is a part of the statute that is often not prosecuted. And the reason why it's not prosecuted is because if our DA's offices started prosecuting adultery cases, they wouldn't have time to do anything else.
That would be three times worse than DUIs.
Yeah, that would be all they did.
You'd have to have a special adultery court.
But for the purposes of adultery being found in our criminal code, it's actually very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why it's helpful is because it actually provides a definition of what adultery is. You know, we have a general concept of an affair in, the context of a marriage, right? Mm-hmm. But as adultery is defined, I've got it pulled up here. So it's 13A 13.2. So, and that's in our Alabama code. But a person commits adultery when he engages in sexual intercourse with another person who is not his spouse and lives in cohabitation with that other person when he or that other person is married. So there's other subsections to this, but that's the general definition of adultery. And what a lot of people lose sight of in the legal process is, we see sexual intercourse, and that's obviously, a red flag in these cases.
It's hard to prove that.
Yeah. So. The other aspect of it, though, is in this element is the cohabitation. Mm-hmm. So cohabitation is a requirement.
You got to be
in order to establish adultery.
You got to live there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got to be a pattern of living together.
It's more than just stepping out of the marriage. Mm-hmm. You're in effect, you've moved in to the other person's home. So, and I try in my pleadings to really take the legislature's definition of terms seriously. I think words matter.
Mm-hmm, sure.
So
especially in your business,
it may be a scenario where while adultery is a fault-based ground to get you a divorce, in our legal system in Alabama, we have a path towards a no-fault divorce, which is just an irreconcilable differences between the parties or an incompatibility of temperament, which is generally just saying, Judge, we don't get along, and this marriage is beyond saving. It's irretrievably broken, would be the, legal mumbo jumbo for it. So oftentimes I will use stepping out of the marriage not as a means to establish adultery in and of itself. I will use it as a means to establish why the marriage is irretrievably broken. Why is it irretrievably broken? Because my spouse stepped out on the marriage and there's no coming back from that for me. So in that way, is it adultery? I mean, not as it is
on the book term,
not as it's legally defined, but it is certainly a relevant fact that can lead you to a divorce for the simple fact of somebody stepping out on their marriage.
Sure. So in Alabama, they always say, I hear people, Facebook that's gold, right?
Oh yeah. No, it comes up all the time.
On Facebook, they say Alabama's a 50-50 state.
Sure.
All right. That I know what that. I mean, you can get past that, right?
Sure. So what Alabama is, and each state does things differently, but as it concerns Alabama, for example, Alabama is an equitable division state, and a lot of people interpret that to mean 50-50. So this if you get separated from your spouse, then they're going to get 50% of stuff and you're going to get 50% of whatever you've acquired during the marriage. That's not inherently true. So we're an equitable division state, meaning fair. That's what it means. A fair distribution of the marital estate between the parties at the time they separate. And oftentimes the easiest way to interpret fair is 50-50. It's to give this person half and this person half. But given the specific parameters or facts of a case, it may not be 50-50 in those scenarios. And, our appellate courts have made it abundantly clear if it's not going to be 50-50, a judge can do that, but a judge needs to provide a very, very good reason why they're doing that. So you're not going to do that with a one-page divorce decree. You're going to have to probably flesh that out in some details about what facts the court relied on in dividing whatever the marital property is. And certainly adultery or having an affair can have an effect on a court determining what is fair.
Sure.
So
Now we get people call all the time, and they got the bass boat and the trailer.
Sure.
And I'm like, dude, don't spend $3,000 to $5,000 on a private investigator. Just go get divorced. Go get a lawyer.
That is solid. That is solid financial advice.
Right.
So not even necessarily legal advice, just solid financial advice.
Just get divorced and sell the trailer and move on with life. Now we get them coming where they've got $5+ more million in assets, properties, and businesses, and those kind of things. Mm-hmm. And we get a lot where the woman gave up a career 25 years ago, raised children, and the man is the one stepping out. He's not coming home when he's supposed to. We got evidence of him being with another woman or multiple women and all that, while the woman's still keeping the house stable. Mm-hmm. Is that an argument you put in there? Well, the woman is providing stability. The man is out acting like an idiot. I know you wouldn't word it that way, but
yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly a position that you could take in court. I think it would certainly be the obvious path that you would put in front of a judge in terms of establishing, relevance as to, child custody, which ultimately lends itself to child support.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, under the specific parameters that you're talking about, if the mother in your scenario is the homemaker, so that would be a good candidate for alimony too, because again, oftentimes I think people have this misconception with alimony that you get divorced, and when you get divorced, if you didn't work during the course of the marriage, the court isn't going to expect you to hold down a job after you guys get divorced.
You got to rebuild a career, right?
So, no, yeah. I think most judges are going to expect, your life changes after you get divorced. Your life is going to change, and even if you are a candidate for alimony and you may get alimony, I think your court is also going to expect, you're still going to have to enter the workforce. And the court is also sympathetic to the fact that if you haven't worked in the last 10 years, and you've got a resume circulate, that resume is going to show a pretty significant gap in your employment. So, and I think that's by and large, a big portion of what alimony is supposed to be. It's kind of
it's a bridge, right?
Yeah, it's to help you establish your own sense of, I guess, independence or self-worth, so you can take care of yourself. So at the end of the day, alimony is not designed as it's not designed as a means for you to essentially have a lottery judgment. That's not what it's for.
So we got one going on now. We were talking about adultery, but this shifts to alimony a little bit. Sure. We got one happening now where our client, a very successful, well-off guy, and he's paying a chunk of change to his ex-wife in alimony every month. Now she has gone out and built her own successful business, entrepreneur couple, right?
Sure.
Doing good, but she's trying to show that she still lives by herself.
Okay.
Now, we were hired, and we have proven over and over again that she is living with another guy. Based off the mail, her coming in and out. It's not just a one night. They didn't have a date one night. It's going on for a month, right?
Yeah, we had a toothbrush over there.
Right, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
She gets mail there, packages delivered, and all this stuff. And they're going to court over this. He's filed for modification. And she's saying she doesn't live there. So I'm like, I don't know what she's...
Sure.
I've got to go testify. Me and another guy's got to go testify and play videos and stuff.
Sure.
You think she has a chance of keeping that?
I mean, I don't know what evidence the other side has to establish that they don't live over there. It sounds like you guys have very good, strong evidence that she is cohabitating with somebody else. And for the purposes of the modification action being one to modify alimony or to terminate alimony, alimony, like child custody, it comes in a variety of flavors in Alabama. So, you have permanent periodic alimony, you have alimony in gross, you have rehabilitative alimony, just to name a few. And in those perspectives, alimony in gross isn't modifiable. So you can't even go to court to change whatever alimony in gross is, because it's almost considered the same thing as a property settlement. So, and property settlements aren't subject to modification.
Sure.
So if it's permanent periodic alimony, then that's where this analysis becomes very relevant, because permanent periodic alimony is exactly what it sounds like when I say it. That operative word is permanent. There is a scenario to where that never stops unless, either the payee or payor is no longer with us on this earth.
Sure.
So that's
where I think it's in a whole other case.
That's maybe. That's where the analysis, and it sounds like what you're going through, that's when it's particularly relevant. But yeah, no, it certainly sounds like good enough facts where I would probably initiate a lawsuit.
Sure. Yeah, he just wanted to go away. You know what I mean?
And if it's permanent periodic alimony, that's one of the avenues to get there. Is you show that cohabitation with another person, and when you do, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So, Judge, under that circumstance, I think we need to evaluate how much my money is actually necessary to this person being able to support themselves, because it looks like they have another individual who would love to have that job.
Not only is she making a chunk of cash on the business side of the house, but looks like she's being supported by another man.
Yeah,
so so there's two arguments, right?
Right,
so, all right.
Yeah.
So back to adultery. When you get to, you say, hey, I'm going to file for divorce, the judge typically orders you for mediation, right? And says, hey, see if you can figure this out, lawyers.
Sure.
And is mediation, is that under oath, or is it just y'all sitting around talking?
No, it's actually to the contrary. So mediation, whether it's court ordered or the parties agree to go to mediation, it is a confidential process in and of itself. So the mediator, and mediators don't have to be, but oftentimes in Alabama, they are lawyers themselves. They rotate between two sets of parties. And as they rotate between two sets of parties, you got two conference rooms, and this mediator goes back and forth between them, and the parties are in separate conference rooms. And those statements that are made during mediation are confidential. They can't be, nobody can say what happens at mediation. And that's to encourage the process of everybody trying to work in good faith to facilitate and reach some kind of an agreement. Even the mediator between the conference rooms can't share information that is designated to be confidential by a party. So, hey, we think they're having an affair. And so based on that, maybe we think the person who's asking for alimony is a person who's engaged in the affair. And so we take the position, judge, or mediator, we don't want to pay them alimony. And the reason why we don't want to pay them alimony is because I've got a 2-hour-long video of them doing the deed.
Gallivanting.
Yeah, doing the deed. And because of that, with another individual who isn't my client, and because of that, we don't feel like we should have to pay alimony. But mediator, the other side doesn't know we have this 2-hour-long video of them doing the deed, and we don't want you to share that with them. In which case, the mediator is ethically bound where they can't share that information, but the mediator can share with them, hey, they're not willing to agree to pay you alimony. And, the mediator may ask you that situation, well, can I at least tell the other side that based on what you're telling me, I think you have a very good argument in terms of why.
Right. Now, do the lawyers ever talk?
Oh, yeah. Oftentimes, I try to explain this to a lot of people. And look, this, different strokes for different folks. So I acknowledge this. So I'm going to give everybody kind of my perspective. I often have clients who come to me because I do litigate cases. So I'm not an attorney that's scared to go to court, and that's not me saying that I'm better than any other attorney. I'm not. But for the purpose, if you don't want to settle your case, I'm not going to try to push a settlement on my client. If they want their day in court, that is their right as an American, and I will support them to court.
Right.
So I say all that to say, if that's the design of this system working, then I'm going to support my client's path to get there. And I think I've lost my train of thought. What was your question? What did you ask me?
I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Right. So
no, the question was the lawyers, like we talked about the mediator.
Right.
Do you ever call up lawyer Sally and say, look, can we make a deal here? Do you ever do that? So,
right. Yeah, we've brought me back. This is the reason why I would say that. This is the reason why it's relevant. I have very, very good friends who are also lawyers, and it comes with the territory of doing this job. And you will see me litigate a case, and I will get red in the face, litigating your case against the other side, who more than likely is a friend of mine. And they will also get red in the face if they're a good lawyer, and they're going to be, arguing just as passionately for their client as I'm arguing for you. And then when judge breaks for lunch, don't take it personally if these two lawyers, me included, go to lunch together. That doesn't mean that we don't care about your case, or we don't care about our individual clients. We do. Oftentimes that's when the attorneys are talking about the case to see if there's any path towards settlement. But I make this comparison often when I try to explain this I guess, relationship in terms of how it works in law is being a lawyer. It's a lot like boxing.
Mm-hmm.
So, or UFC fighting or anything like that, right? Oftentimes these people don't actually hate each other, these boxers, but they do have a job to do. And when they step into a boxing ring or they step into an octagon, they're going to do their job.
They're going to try to win, right?
Right, exactly. But after they get done doing their jobs, oftentimes they don't have a personal vendetta against the other person. So, and that's the way the law's supposed to work in these scenarios. So, yeah, lawyers talk all the time in the context of mediation. Yeah, attorneys talk. They can talk that way too. Oftentimes I don't, because that's what we're paying a mediator for. They're the person that's supposed to be going back and forth between the parties. But yeah, not uncommon for attorneys to both step out of their respective conference rooms and try to hash out any kind of details between one another.
That's interesting. I've had it. Just particularly one case where the opposition lawyer, I know her well, and she grilled me.
That's the job.
Like try to make me look stupid. I just, I just said yes, no, or I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's the way to answer most questions.
I've been trained in that, right?
Yeah.
They try to get you to speculate and get outside of your reports and all that stuff, which I don't. But she was loud, waving her arms around and all that. And then I just stepped out and went to the burger joint, and she came in and talked. We hung out and she bought me a hamburger. I didn't hold it against her. I'd be mad at her, but she didn't do her job.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Job. It really is. Yeah.
If if she came in there and just been over and took it, I'd be like, what are you doing? Right. Aren't you a lawyer? So
all
right, we're going to call it on this one for now.
Okay.
Take a break, and we'll be back with another topic here in just a bit.
Okay. Sounds great.